Hello and welcome to How to Pick Up, where we interview all the experts and professionals and give you their opinions on how to pick those several important things in life. We're at 88 Cups Coffee Shop in Minden, Nevada, and we're interviewing Belinda Grant, a professional wedding photographer. You may have seen some of her work in the Record Courier or taken a class from her at WNCC, or you may have seen some of her lovely work in your friends' wedding albums. We're going to be interviewing her today on how to pick the perfect photographer for your special events. Thank you for meeting with us today, Belinda. Thanks for having me. Go.
Yeah, would you mind telling us just a bit about yourself and your work as a photographer?
Yeah, I went to an art college in Florida after high school and interned at the Miami Herald, the Palm Beach Post, and my main photography at that time was photojournalism. I moved out here and worked for the Record Courier about 15 years. I was the chief photographer. Taught photography also at WNC. It was WNCC at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So I taught black and white photography. And then started my wedding business after I had kids, or one kid at the time, and started phasing more into the wedding part and doing my own business. And that got so busy that I stopped teaching, and then I retired from the newspaper, and now I strictly do my own photography business, which is weddings, families, portraits, babies, and now a lot of league sports photography too. So, and schools have been calling me. So
wow,
yeah,
so you're gonna do it all.
Yeah, it's they always say that you shouldn't be a jack of all trades, the master of none, or you should be the master of one, not jack of all trades.
So, yeah, but you kind of are a master.
Yeah, I think that once you understand light and photography, and you kind of know what you're doing, and you love what you do, I love the variety that I get to do. There's different times of year that I'm doing different types of photography, and it keeps me really busy, which I love.
Yeah, and those skills, those like central skills kind of translate to all the different types of things you photograph.
Exactly. Photography is photography. It's the language of light. So,
wow, yeah.
The camera records it, and you have to be able to know how to read it. So
yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So what would be the most challenging part of your job?
I think the most challenging part is the amount of after work that you have. Everybody thinks that once you're done with the shoot, boom, you're done. But most of the work is actually done on the computer now. It used to be all negatives, but now, which I asked my kids about negatives a couple weeks ago, and they had no idea what negatives were. I was like, oh. So I know, right? Oh, you know. But I think the most challenging part is how much after work you have. It's you want to cull the bad photos. Everybody gets bad photos. You got to cull those out. You want to Photoshop the photos, make sure they look good, make sure everybody looks good in the photos and stuff like that. So the amount of after work is, to me, the most challenging, because I have a tendency to spend most of my life pretty much on the computer to the detriment of my children.
Yeah,
so
kind of becoming the computer geek in a way.
You do. And everybody says, you should know... you should know every aspect of your computer and stuff like that. You should know all these programs, but there's so many programs out there, and there's so many different ways to do one thing. On the computer with Photoshop or Lightroom and stuff like that. So everybody gets what they're comfortable with, and the faster your workflow and your work process goes, that's what you kind of stick with.
So what would be, what would be kind of the steps involved in looking at what would be the right photographer for me if I were to have a special event? How would I find out about if the photographer had the kind of skills you're talking about on the computer and satisfied customers?
Right. Well, you want to definitely go to their website first. I always go to their website and check them out, and I want to look at a full wedding or a full setting. So you want to see the full shoot. You don't want to see just one photo of that wedding, because everybody can pull one photo out of a wedding and be like, I'm a great photographer. You want to look at the entire thing from start to finish, and more than one too, if you can. You can, see a couple different weddings. Take the time. It takes a long time to get through those photos, but take the time to browse through the photos. Make sure that you like what you see. And of course, there's always going to be one or two photos that you're like, not so much. And you have every right to tell your photographer, I'm not comfortable having that photo taken. I don't want that one.
Wow,
so because
to do that.
You can say no to anybody, so you have the right to say no to that. Or if you have suggestions too. Some photographers hate that, and some photographers like that. So it all depends on how the personality also meshes, the photographer and client type thing. You want to look for their experience, what type of camera equipment they have, if it's professional camera equipment. You want to also see if they have good reviews, type thing.
Like Yelp or...
Yeah, like Yelp. I know a lot of my DJ friends, they get a ton of weddings from Yelp. But most of my stuff is word of mouth. I go to the two bridal fairs a year, but most of my clients I get are from word of mouth.
Okay.
So, from past clients.
Yeah, so that's kind of a good reference that they're, or a good indicator that they're a good photographer if people are willing to kind of
recommend them. Exactly. Yeah, if your friends are recommending them and stuff. So, and I've heard horror stories from, we had this other photographer who wouldn't do this or wouldn't do that, or and it's like everybody has their own way of doing things. But if you get a recommendation from a client they've seen you work and stuff, so they know. Like, I have a little bit of an offbeat personality, so they know how I work, and they know I like to have fun when I take pictures, because a lot of times when it comes to weddings, people are like, oh, now you take pictures. If you make it fun for them, it's not so boring. You know? And especially the groom and the groomsmen, they dread pictures. And so you make it fun for them, you joke around, and they're like, oh, it's done already? So...
make it a really memorable experience, not just looking at it, but also during the process of
Exactly, and make it move fast.
Yeah.
The faster you go, the faster and more fun you have. They don't realize that you're really there to take their picture, but you make it fun for them, and they don't dread it as much.
That's like the sign of a seasoned pro.
Right.
So, that kind of leads into, segues into the next question. How would you rate the importance of getting along with your photographer?
Very important. 10, 100. Yeah, you want to definitely be able to get along with your photographer, and the photographer should get along with their client too, because not all personalities mesh. And I've turned plenty of clients away where I thought, this isn't going to be the right fit. Or I wasn't going to be the right fit for them. It's just a handful of times that has happened, but, a lot of times you want to get along with your photographer. You're with that photographer for the bride getting ready, the bridesmaids portraits, the groom and groomsmen portraits, the ceremony, the family photos afterwards and stuff like that, and then the bride and groom photos, the wedding party photos at the whole reception. You kind of get a little break from your photographer, because then I have a tendency to back away and photograph it as it happens. But you should really get along with your photographer.
Yeah, it kind of sounds to me like your photographer is almost like, for that day, a family member.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's been many times where they're like, oh my gosh, it's like you're part of the family. And I love that. I love that when I get that feeling, and you get that comment and that compliment.
Yeah.
So, because I always feel like I fall in love with my couples, I do. I fall in love with them. I fall in love with the bridal party, and I just, I care about them and want to make sure that they look good and that they're having fun, and that it's not like, oh, more photos. You want to make it fun for them. So, and I care what they think, and I care what I produce.
Yeah.
So,
want to make them enjoy every minute, not dread any of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And look back on their day and think, oh my gosh, that was the best day of my life, because it goes so fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
Like a blink.
It is. You plan it for a year or less, but you plan it for months and months and months, and then it's over in 5 or 6 hours. It's like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that's why it's so essential to get a good photographer, because you're the one who's in charge of immortalizing the day.
Exactly. You're relying on that person to make sure that they don't screw up and they get the best of what they saw that day.
Yeah. So I feel like it's a very understated part of the wedding plan, and it's really in retrospect one of the most important.
Well, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I hear from a lot of people. Get good pictures.
Yeah.
But so what is are or is it good usually to meet with your photographer, like at what time before the wedding?
I like to initially meet with my clients to see if we are even compatible for booking. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like last week, I booked a wedding at the Hyatt, and they were just in town from New York, and they're not able to meet with me. But you can kind of feel them out and talk with them over the phone and see if you kind of get along over the phone, too. And I've had other clients who... one client, I've only met her over the phone, and ended up that, like, she's actually become a photographer, and she has come on weddings with me and stuff like that, and she's a fantastic person. Wow. And I only met her on the phone, and we totally meshed. But over the phone, I thought, I really like her. So, but I do recommend that you meet with your clients. I recommend that your clients, the bride and groom, meet with their photographer. Make sure if they annoy you at the meeting, you're not going to be able to handle them for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Exactly. It could be up to 10 hours. You're not going to be able to handle them, and they're going to annoy you on your wedding day. So you want to make sure that you definitely meet with them, get along with them. Make sure you're on the same page. A lot of times people don't realize that it takes time to create photos. It takes time to get the bride and groom photos done. It takes time to do the wedding party photos, and it takes time to do the family photos. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes. You need to plan your day. You need to, and if it doesn't happen according to plan, that's okay too. Your photographer and your vendors should help shuffle things, around and work together. Everybody should work together. And it's important, though, that team players willing to adapt, and you should be on the same page with your clients, with the bride and groom, for when you meet. So you kind of get an idea of what each is looking for.
Right. Yeah. So, kind of that segues into how are you able to, if you meet with a couple and they have a certain idea in mind of what they'd like or a certain style, and how would you accommodate that, even if it was something kind of unrealistic or...
Right. A lot of times when people call to meet with me, they've already seen my work. They already know my style. They know, what I can produce and stuff like that. So, because the internet's great for that. They can see other weddings from that venue. If I've shot there, they can see kind of what my style is. It's pretty important. Most of the time when I meet with somebody, they want my style of photography. But I'm always willing to accept, this is a touchy subject, I'm willing to listen to my clients and produce photos that they're looking for too, because I think it's their wedding. It's their photos. They should get what they want. Yeah. But it's also my vision of how I interpret that. So a lot of photographers are very touchy, and they don't want to be told, they don't want to be given a list of Pinterest photos and say, I want these. You have to collaborate, so it can't be all Pinterest or all photographer. Yeah. You have to meet in the middle, and I think that because it's not my wedding, I'm there to record your day, I kind of do a combination of kind of, we collaborate. I'm like, give me your must-haves, and we'll collaborate on, know. And sometimes other people have good ideas. It's okay to listen to other people. It's okay to, listen to your client and produce what they want too.
Ooh, so that's where personality comes.
Exactly. Meet with your photographer.
So you kind of have to meet them in the middle. One hand, you're coming to that photographer because you like their style, but also the photographer should be open to the couple's vision too.
Exactly. I think you have to work together.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's see. So how flexible should the photographer be in kind of shooting in styles kind of out of their comfort zone?
I have taken a couple weddings where I'm like, it's so out of my comfort zone, but I kind of liked it because they made me think, and they made me be on my toes, and they made me think outside the box and not do my normal stuff that, and I always try to incorporate new things at every wedding, but I kind of liked it because it challenged me. So for me, I'm okay with that. And some people aren't, though. It all depends, once again, if you guys get along, if you guys have the same vision. So
Yeah, so it's a very like central get along.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get along with your photographer.
Let's see. In your professional opinion, like what are some types of techniques and angles and things that produce like some of the prettiest effects?
My favorite for me, it's the zoomed in lens. For me, I have a 70 to 200 2.8 lens that I use, and for me, the longer the lens, the better the compression, the better the shallow depth of field. Shallow depth of field is range of focus. So that means that you and the groom are in focus and the rest is blurred out.
Oh,
so yeah, so for me, I like to shoot a lot of shallow depth of field. And so my favorite lens happens to be the 72-200. And then I also have another lens that I use, and I do have some wide angle lenses and stuff that I use that to do that overall shot, or you want to get the trees really tall or something like that. So
kind of a panoramic look.
Yeah, kind of more of a fisheye.
Oh,
yeah. So, but not quite a fisheye.
yeah, making it look pretty, not too distorted.
Right. You don't want to distort your people, especially on the ends of the photos. Yeah.
Yeah, the day they want to look their best.
Right. It's like, I never recommend a wide-angle lens for portraits because it has a tendency to distort things. So like if you're photographing a bride and they're sitting down and you're using a wide-angle lens, it's going to elongate that nose, and nobody wants a really long nose and a really long chin. So when you use the telephoto lens, it compresses things as well as it gives you, I think, a more flattering look to the couple, to the bride.
And that kind of perfectly segues into the next question. What are some of the best advice that you could give to a couple on looking their best on that day? Like some common mistakes people make it dressing. Glitter. Don't
wear glitter. I've had some moms put on glitter and it looks like dandruff.
Really?
Yes, the light will catch it at certain times. So you have to stamp out all the glitter, or you have to you have to get rid of that because it does look like, something's on there, or it looks like dandruff. So, and a lot of people like glitter, and they like to put on that glittery lotion and stuff like that. Never looks good.
Wow.
Another mistake is, actually the florist should take care of this, but the pistons from the flowers. If they don't cut the pistons off, a lot of times that pollen will get on the dress.
Yeah.
Red roses will streak. If you just rub it a little too hard and stuff, a red rose will streak. Type thing. So, and I also recommend having a makeup artist, having your hair done, having a makeup artist, and make sure you get it done early enough in the day that you have time for those photos, because a lot of times it's like right up, to the time where I'm supposed to start shooting the bride, and the bride hasn't even been done yet.
Wow.
So, a makeup artist, because that makeup stays on and it looks really good. And they know what to put on so it's not going to reflect the light back, and they know what to put on so that it'll stay on all day.
Yeah, that's their specialty.
Exactly. So makeup artists, I think I always recommend my brides have a makeup artist. And if they don't, that's fine too. I can Photoshop the dark circles out.
Yeah, just a lot more unnecessary work.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they always look their best when they have a makeup artist.
So how do you kind of, or how would you recommend to people like finding a photographer who would kind of be honest with them about those kind of things? Or
a lot of my brides will ask, like, who do you recommend? What would you, in our meeting, it usually takes about an hour for a meeting. So in our first initial meeting, I'll mention, are you planning on a makeup artist? Are you planning on getting your hair done? Because you're kind of talking about the timeline. You're kind of talking about how their day is going to run and what they're looking for. And so it just comes up in conversation. So, and I just, say, hey, are you looking for a makeup artist? And, do you have somebody? I recommend it. You get your hair done. What are you going to do? And if they don't have it in the budget, that's fine too. You just have to, work around it. And I carry a kit with me to my weddings because then they always think like, oh my gosh, she carries a kit. That's fabulous. And it makes me look good. But on the other hand, it's easier for me to pull out a bobby pin or to pull out, like a safety pin than it is to wait them 20 minutes to find that bobby pin or safety pin.
Yeah.
So basically it's it's a little selfish on my part because I want to be able to get more photos for them. If I have the little things with me in my little bag of tricks, then it always works out better because I have it right there.
Yeah, you're kind of being collaborative and saving other people from that hard work.
Exactly. Or having to search for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I think we brought it, and then it takes 10 minutes for them to find it, and so you're waiting to take the photos for a safety pin or a bobby pin or something.
Yeah, so that's like another good thing to look for in your photographer. Make sure that they have like all these plan Bs and and prepared for everything.
Yeah. I find it's a lot easier. I can't tell you how many times I've actually had to sew a bustle in a wedding dress because they didn't realize they needed to have a bustle sewn in when they bought their wedding dress. It doesn't come with a bustle is what ties the back of the dress up. If you have a train, it ties the back of the dress up so that you're not dragging it or you don't have to carry it with you the whole time. So a lot of times, and literally it'll be 2-3 weddings per year where they have no bustle and or their bustle rips or something. So I carry a sewing kit too, and I've sewed a bride back into her dress because it ripped, or I've sewed a mom back into her dress, or sewed a bustle on the back. So it's good to have some sewing skills.
Yeah, definitely. Everything.
Not that I have sewing skills, but I kind of wing it.
Yeah.
So
we're just going to take a short break. Stay tuned with us, and when we return, we're going to be talking about some of the most in vogue trends in wedding photography.
Welcome back. So we're going to be asking Belinda about some of the most in vogue styles in wedding photography now. So what are some trends that you're seeing in wedding photography?
I see that a lot of people are trying to think outside the box and trying to find new places to have weddings and stuff like that. So there's backyard weddings, which before were when you had not a big budget, and now they're hiring people to come in and do long family style tables with mismatched chairs and beautiful flowers and stuff like that.
Right.
So there's a lot of different. If you have access to a ranch, and the valley is perfect for that. And there's some new locations that are opening up that are ranches around here that they're opening up for weddings. So, and I know that's a big request.
Yeah.
So there's some beautiful areas down here in the valley for photos.
Yeah, I see
weddings.
more and more like Western style weddings and like the mason jar.
Yep. With chalkboard, burlap and lace.
Yeah, so how do you is there a different approach you take in photography to capturing those different kind of
I think you just have to kind of read the personality of the bride and groom, see if they're willing to have fun and just kind of go with it with them. There's some weddings where they finished off an entire bottle of Fireball by the time you get to family photos.
Ooh,
yeah, it's fun. I don't drink, but at weddings, but it's fun to they're having fun and they're enjoying themselves and stuff like that. So there's a point where they can take it too far. But that's they want to have fun and they want to enjoy their day and stuff like that. So and then there's some weddings where it's just nice, quiet family and they're close friends and they're getting together and just enjoying their family time and stuff like that. So those are always nice too. So photo booths seem to be a big one in the last few years.
Oh, really? Like
yes.
The ones you put coins in, kind of? Or?
There's different types. There's a photo booth that you can do the whole coin thing, but you don't actually have the coins. It just takes the pictures. But it is the box where you're sitting there and they have props and stuff. And then photographers have their own photo booths too. So where you bring a tent and you kind of tent it off and you bring the props and you have it manned by another photographer that comes along. And then there is one of the coolest ones I've seen is it was a video camera that photographed people moving around and doing stuff, and then they printed it out on site and made it to a flip book.
Oh, wow.
And and every guest got them, and they had these little flip books of them, and it was them moving across the screen and doing things. I was so impressed by that one.
So what was the most interesting place you've ever photographed?
I was booked to photograph a small wedding, and it was a Halloween in Virginia City in the cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And she had actually hunted around for a photographer, and a lot of people turned her down. And I thought, are you kidding? This is something so exciting and so new, right?
Yeah.
She made her dress. She made his vest. She made everything. She made decorations. She had it in the old Catholic part of the cemetery, hung stuff all over the place, and it was a little gothic, and it was skulls and stuff like that. But they were so fun, and they were so willing to see outside the box.
Wow.
And I actually brought 2 photos in the photos that you'll see. And you'll see she's wearing a black and orange wedding dress. She made her own wedding dress. So
that's so neat.
it was very cool. And it was like right around sunset time. And then we went down to Gold Hill Hotel and did some photos down there and stuff like that. But everything was decorated for Halloween. And we got to go around and do all the photos before the ceremony. That they wanted to have taken in different areas of Virginia City. So it was a very cool wedding. So I really enjoyed that one because it was right, up my alley with just fun and weird.
Yeah, it kind of sheds light on it's your special day and be willing to, or get a photographer who's willing to accommodate that and celebrate it with you.
Her favorite holiday was Halloween, and they just put everything. She loves Halloween, so they put everything into it. So.
Yeah, and again, like a good photographer leaves an impact on people like that. And,
well, they left an impact on me too, so I really enjoyed photographing them.
That's really special. Yeah. It's the best time before a wedding to book the photographer.
I have a tendency to start booking the year before. So for next June, I'm already talking to brides. Oh, so I guess it's a little bit more than a year before. But it's about a year beforehand that I start booking up in June. And sometimes there's dates open and stuff like that, but June and September are the most popular months. And I book about a year out. Okay. Yeah.
So some couples, have you ever worked with a couple who hired 2 photographers? Or?
A lot of times if you ask the photographer you're hiring, it's in their contract that you cannot hire another photographer.
Really?
Because then you're trying to work for the same client, but it's really hard to get the photos that you need to get without, well, it's my turn, no, it's my turn. So a lot of times if you ask the photographer that you've already hired, if they could possibly, you could pay for a second shooter. A lot of times you have the option of doing the second shooter because you want your wedding photos to kind of be in the same style. If you hire 2 separate photographers that have never worked together, don't know each other, don't know you've hired 2 separate photographers, there could be a lot of conflict in that.
I imagine.
Yeah, so you'd have to be careful unless, it's something that you've talked about with your photographer and it's something that they planned or something. But I would not surprise, you wouldn't hire 2 DJs.
No.
You know what I mean? Or 2 venues. So, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. And a lot of times it's in their contract to not have a competition there.
So pretty much just find one good photographer, work with them,
right.
And see if you could get their approval for a second shooter.
Right, or you can ask that photographer, and they usually have second shooters that they hire that the client would pay for to come to.
So you're all on the same wavelength.
Right. So, and I have an assistant that I bring with me, and then she's my second shooter. Usually, I'll have at least one person with me, sometimes 2 or 3, that can carry the lights and do that kind of stuff at a wedding. So,
so it's possible, but just make sure that it's with the one photographer, the one vision.
Right. A lot of photographers give you the option of hiring or paying for a second shooter.
Okay. So what are some red flags to look out for with when you're interviewing a photographer and you are hitting it off, but there's what are some, like, you could hit it off well personality-wise, but what are some things about their work that would maybe...
If they only show you one photo from each wedding, and they don't show you a book of an entire wedding start to finish, that might mean, that they've only shot that one wedding or only have one or two good photos out of an entire wedding that looks good. And maybe their reception photos suck. You don't know until you see a full wedding. Another thing would be, see what kind of products that they offer. A lot of photographers, it's a big debate right now with photographers whether you should give up printing rights to your photos. If that's important to you, then basically, and you want your negatives, or a digital copy of your photos, then you should find a photographer who releases that print rights. See if they offer an album and stuff like that. Find out what you want and then look at their packages, see what's compatible, and say, I don't need this and this, but I want this. And see if they're willing to adjust their packages and stuff. I mean, everything's flexible. A good 40 to 60 hours of work from when you're done with the wedding. So it takes a long time. And if they're just starting out, a lot of times they don't calculate in that time. And A, they're not going to make any money. And B, they're going to burn out really fast because, it takes a ton of time to do that stuff. So,
reflect in the work.
Right. Be careful what you pay for. So if you see somebody that's, $500 for 18 hours of photography, you get an album and get this. Well, those albums are $300-$400.
Wow.
So where are they getting these albums from if they can shoot the whole wedding for $500? So find out, where they're getting that stuff.
Yeah, it could be too good to be true.
Exactly. Or see if there's markups or, stuff like that.
So, onto some questions, like some photography phrases. What a first look is?
Sure. A first look is when you do the bride's photos of her getting ready, and then the groom gets ready, and then you have them meet before the ceremony. And so a lot of times you can kind of set it up where it's a little romantic, and the groom is standing off, and the bride walks up and taps him on his shoulder, or they see each other by opening the doors type thing. And that's a popular one because if you want to go to your cocktail hour, which is normally when the photographer takes the photos, then do a first look if you're not worried about him seeing you for the first time before the ceremony. And I have photographed plenty of first looks. I never push them because people have their own visions of they want to have that surprise.
Right.
But on the first look, I have done them, and the groom still cries when she walks down the aisle afterwards. So, and this way they have their time, and you can go off to some different locations and do the bride and groom photos. And then usually the wedding party photos, you want to do those ahead of time too, when you have a first look. And then I always save the family photos for afterwards because then they're in one location. So after the first look, the bride goes and freshens up, and then I do the groom's photos, and then it's ceremony time. So basically a first look is when a bride and groom does their photos before the ceremony, and they see each other ahead of time.
They get the most genuine surprise.
Exactly. Oh, the looks that they have are awesome. So it's really nice. And then after the ceremony, you do the family photos, a couple more wedding party photos, and it usually takes 20-25 minutes then for photos instead of a full hour. Then they have time to enjoy their cocktail reception.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, a lot of bride and grooms don't get to do that. They don't get to enjoy that time with their guests. So if they have a lot of out-of-town guests, a lot of times they choose the first look.
Well, that's nice. That's like an intimate part of a big wedding.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, what does the phrase shoot and burn mean?
Shoot and burn is when you go, it's usually very small weddings that they don't have a whole big budget. And I have a tendency, if I do have a shoot and burn, they've booked me very close to the wedding. And I just happen to not be open. And it's a small wedding. You go, you don't do a whole lot of the getting ready photos and stuff like that. You do, right before the ceremony, you do the ceremony, and then the family, wedding party, bride and groom photos. Then basically you download the photos and you give them a disc. No Photoshop whatsoever. Nothing. So it means you shoot it, you burn it to a disc.
Wow, it's like a very rough draft.
Very rough draft. So
Well, that concludes our segment. Thank you very much, Belinda.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. That was very informative. You've been watching How to Pick Up, and we've been talking to Belinda Grant about how to pick the perfect wedding photographer or the photographer for a special event in your life. You could find out more about her business by visiting her website or viewing her photo gallery. Where can we find that?
My website is belindagrantphotography.com, and my gallery site is photogrant.zenfolio.com. That's zenfolio.com.
Right, yeah, and you could see all the highlights of her work. And after this, we're going to take you on a virtual tour of some of the highlights of her weddings that she shot. And we would like to put out a special thank you to 88 Cups here in Minden, Nevada for hosting our interview. If you come by 88 Cups, you could expect to enjoy a delicious cup of coffee, lunch, and if you come in on the special nights, you could take an art class here. We've been standing in front of some of their artwork. So thank you very much, and catch us next time on How to Pick Up.
Good.